for research institutes, or what about universities? I'm very particular about universities because, all over the world, when you talk about breakthroughs in, research and all of that, many times it comes from the universities themselves. And, of course, the students themselves will get the opportunity to, learn more so that when they come out, they'll be even better graduates in that field of study.
So this is also important that the universities are properly funded to do research. They've done some research. Most of it is what you call primary research. But they need more money, more endowments to do more deep-seated research, more applied research, not just general research that can solve specific industry problems. But on top of that, if the universities do research, basic research, then you need funding for the development. Development takes a longer, more expensive money. That's where the industry comes in. That's what it's called R&D. The universities do the research, then the industry does the development and then brings the products to the market. Each side needs long-term funding. The universities, you know how poorly they are funded now, especially government-owned universities. They are barely able to meet the operational costs, not talk of investment in Iran. So they do minimal research, and Nigerians haven't gotten to the point where chairs are endowed, researchers are endowed. I think that the Ministry of Science and Technology has a responsibility, working with the Ministry of Industry, to promote this aspect of our economy. You don't hear much about it. We're speaking about debt and borrowing and those issues.
Yeah, 2020, the Vision 2020. So, it just makes one wonder, because I was going to ask you, how does that make you feel? We're looking at all the indicators, all the indices, and then we keep talking about the fact that, we want to be, develop our MDGs. By year 2020, we'll be among the world's, top developed economies. But if we don't get, do our homework, get our own house in order, just the pharmaceutical industry, I looked at so many numbers. I looked at countries, India, China, what they've done so far, but we're not doing anything. So how does that make you feel? And what do you think when you look ahead, just 8 years away, we have year 2020?
No, Esther, it's frustrating. And it's a double jeopardy, because government itself seems to realize this. I was involved with so many other Nigerians in developing Vision 2020. And Vision 2020 has designed all this, that to be able to get to the country with the highest GDP, or one of the highest GDPs by 2020,
nations, as it said,
we ought to be growing in all segments. And the area of wealth creation and real-value creation through the real sector of manufacturing, of mining, of agriculture is so important. It's been designed. There's a design. The question is, after we've done this design, how are we able to put action behind them for implementation? The planning was done phased, but I want to tell you that I am not certain that we are putting the appropriate investment, and we're moving in a much slower rate than is required. As for planning, I can tell you that this country has done great planning for 2020, but it's putting the necessary investment, necessary plan, necessary action to realize it, and that's where the frustration comes in.
Now, in that, I'm not sure if you know or remember, in that document for the pharmaceutical or for the health sector, pharmaceutical sector, how much of that, in terms of returns, is expected, or in terms of growth for that particular industry?
Well, it was estimated that for the pharmaceutical industry to make its meaningful contribution as a major area of focus, because the country looked at where are the areas that it can scale up. Where do we have competitive advantage? And with this, we were able to find that we could do well in pharmaceuticals and chemicals. We could do well in rubber and footwears.
With material sourced locally?
Sourced locally.
Okay.
Sourced locally. Because we have leather. So we looked at those areas, agro-allied, things derived from agriculture, food processing. We identified those areas we could do well. And pharmaceuticals happened to be one of them, because most of the raw materials that you need for synthesis and development of dosage forms come from petrochemicals. And we have the basic raw material, which is crude petroleum. We have associated gases that can also be used for metabolic work, so for synthetic work. So this is why it was identified. But as I said, it requires a whole lot of funding. In the last 2 years, we've been working with Bank of Industry. Even the president of the country has approved that some funding should be raised for the industry to be able.
Some funding, or the required, the appropriate funding, because you can't just give out money. There's a specific amount of cash required that would drive at a certain pace or a certain rate.
I agree with you, but there's this common saying that half bread is better than no bread. So if we receive half bread, we could go somewhere, and then expect the balance. But, wanting to get all at once may be a little bit challenging, because there are other things competing for money in the country. This country is in a hurry to develop. And so you have competition, even for the money, and we must be realistic about that. So if only we can get some, and then rekit our companies, set up new equipment, get into R&D, this country will be on its way. I gave you an example of what we did with Cyclavit, and there are a few other companies that have done a few things with local products, local herbs, local plants. All of them continue.
Are these industries or areas that even like you said, it's funding is a problem with funding, but can't within the private sector some investors invest in this areas? Well, one or two of them.
Yeah. This is the challenge. The investment that is going on in the country is largely in the short end. First, distribution, importation, then some level of tertiary manufacturing, then another level of secondary manufacturing. Now, before you get to primary manufacturing, which is development of raw materials, that a lot of investment, and I had told you the requirements of the international monetary, international capital environment. They need a different environment that we have.
But they usually offer cheaper funding, cheaper rates.
No, I'm talking about the investors themselves.
Okay, investors themselves.
Yes, the investors. The investors into primary, they are looking for conditions. Even the banking, the development banking, they just don't give the money to. They must be sure that the environment is such that that money can be returned. And we are speaking about policy. Sometimes we have policy flip-flops, inconsistencies. Even I must say that is improving with the focus of the present government. But we haven't gotten to that place that will elicit, that kind of motivation that will force resources to flow in our direction. So while we're pulling at that, we are thinking that we can also develop local sourcing of funding. And that's why we're working with Bank of Industry that is very, very desirous. I must say the management of Bank of Industry have been very positively disposed to pharmaceuticals and indeed to the industry. But right now, they're a little bit, it's slightly not only on their seat. We need the Minister of Finance, we need the Debt Management Office, and we need
to all be involved
to work in developing this funding.
Have they been reached out to you? Are they aware?
Yeah, the work is going on. It's just that it's going at a very slow rate, and we're not getting the kind of speedy response that we expected. Yeah, but I must say that work is going in that area. All we ask is a speeding of that, and the president could direct through the Minister of Health or Minister of Investment or Minister of Finance that this funding that the pharmaceutical industry requires to come to its manifest destiny
as a matter of urgency
should be provided, and like you said, we can begin to contribute more, because the ability of that industry to create wealth is phenomenal.
What about creation of jobs?
And jobs, yes, create wealth and create jobs.
That's what many economies are all about these days. Yeah. It's all about creating the jobs.
That is it. And from job creation, of course, you create wealth. And that will go around in the total economy. There are even spin-offs from the industry, because beyond the issue of converting, there are associated industries that will supply inputs, capsules in all over the world, and industry its own job is containers.
So we're creating pockets of jobs.
So it's not just the the mixing of chemicals or the synthesis, but there are link-on opportunities, and it goes down to the agriculture. If we start to get pharmaceutical grade starch that will compete with starch required for laundry, that will create cassava people, corn people will have a lot of work.